Let's talk about money. This week on our Community Impact series here on State of the Water, we're going to talk about financial literacy. Are you literate about your money? Do you know where every dollar and every penny is spent? Do you have an emergency savings? Do you have a bank account? What do you know about your finances? Today we have with us Executive Vice President from TowneBank, Yvonne Allmond, to tell us about our financial literacy. It's State of the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric LaVille. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, welcome back. It's State of the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric LaVille. As always, we'd like to thank you for joining us on this beautiful Sunday as we broadcast live, as we always do, from the campus of the Norfolk State University, home of the Spartan Nation, at WNSB Hot 91, the soul of VA. Look, we hope you had a phenomenal Mother's Day weekend and you're ready for the summer. You know, we've got Memorial Day weekend coming up, so, you know, that is the beginning of the summer. You know, so make sure you got everything together and you're out there keeping yourself safe, but at the same time, taking some time for yourself, your family, and having some good, safe fun. You know, here in Hampton Roads, we got a lot of great areas to go. You got the beach, we got the mountains, we've got the hills, we've got so many historical sites to view. So, you know, if you're looking at staycations, and of course the cruise is back, different destinations and so forth here coming out of the Port of Norfolk. So if you're looking for a staycation or you want to get away, you know, Hampton Roads is definitely the place to do it, as always. One reason why I absolutely love and adore this area. You know, this past week we had our opening house for this radio station, WNSB. 40 years this station has been on the air, and we have a brand new studio, state-of-the-art material, state-of-the-art equipment, everything here to have a state-of-the-art radio station, better than some commercial stations that are out there. So if you're looking to advertise, if you're looking to have a partner on the air to get your message out, WNSB is here for you. So make sure you contact us, go to our website, wnsbonline.org, give us a shout out and connect with our community director, our station manager, because we're open for business. As always, we have our producer here, Marvin Folks, also known as DJ Scandalous, who keeps us right and tight on the wheels of steel. You can hear him every day, Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 p.m. He's working special events and the games on Saturday, and yes, on Sunday, the hardest working man in radio. He is here with us as well. Well, for those of you that listen to this show faithfully, you know that I love this particular series that, you know, I've created here for State of the Water. You know, it's a show where it was created to bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. And one of the major areas that I like to highlight are those that are on the ground in our community doing the work. You know, many times we hear about policies, we hear about things that are happening in our world and say, hey, you know, how can I access that? And sometimes it seems a little bit too big and out of reach, and sometimes we just lose interest in it. But in this particular series, the Community Impact series, I'm bringing to you people who are here in our local community that are doing a job on the ground in the community, making a difference and change. So one area that I think is very important that we talk about is money. We all love it. We all love what money does for us. But sometimes, you know, we get a little bogged down and we don't understand our money. We don't understand how to save, how to spend it, how to invest it, the value of it, building a legacy, and, you know, doing a little something to spoil yourself, but not too much. So today I'm extremely excited to invite my good friend and someone who's been doing this for years. That's none other than Yvonne Allmond, who is Executive Vice President and Community Financial Engagement Officer here at TowneBank. Yvonne, thank you for joining us here on State of the Water.
Thank you for asking me to be here. I enjoy doing this.
Absolutely. You know, you're no stranger to Norfolk State. You're no stranger to WNSB. As a matter of fact, you've been to the station many times, and especially this particular, this month and last month, you know, you've graced us with your presence and really given us your knowledge, you know. So we're very grateful to have you, and thank you so much for sharing what you do.
Thank you. I have been on the campus for a while, and I've actually been on the foundation board for at least 20 years.
Absolutely. And, we're going to, as a matter of fact, that's a great way to kind of get into your story, right? Because, like I said, you're no stranger, to Norfolk State. You're no stranger to the station. But I think that your impact that you've made in this community, is something that's behind the scenes, but also, something in your new position that's coming to the forefront. But, being a banker, it's a profession that, many individuals don't look at on career day in elementary or middle high school. It's like, what do you want to be? I want to be a teacher. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer or a judge. But, you rarely see kids that say, I want to be a banker. So what was the thought process and what made you decide that, hey, I want to be a banker?
Well, thank you for inviting me to tell my story. But when I was in college in Washington, D.C., attending the George Washington University, I was a pre-med major, and down the street from the George Washington University was the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which insures all of our monies in the bank. I'm sure everybody's heard about it in recent months, definitely. But I became a proofreader for all the bank's rules and regulations. So before they were published, I had to proofread them before they were sent to the printer. And as I'm reading these things every day, I said, my parents don't know this. My family doesn't know this. And so it became very interesting to me. So I changed my major from pre-med to finance. And I worked at the FDIC for 5 years just learning about the rules around money. I was speaking to a group of students over at Norfolk State, and I told them that it's good to know the rules of money, and they were surprised. I said, what do you mean there are rules around money? There are tons of rules around money, and it can actually be very interesting, and those are very great careers for someone coming out of school. If you want to travel, you can pick your part of the country, become a bank examiner, a bank auditor, or a bank liquidator, and they will train you, and they will pay you while you are training. And once you are an auditor or work for the FDIC, any bank in the country will hire you because you know the rules. And there are tons of rules around banking. We're probably the second most regulated industry outside of the medical industry. There are tons of rules around banking. And I just found it interesting. As we're growing up, we hear our parents usually don't talk to us about money, but we've heard them say, we're short this month or we need more money for this or that. And all of those conversations started to resonate with me as I was reading this, that my family just doesn't know this. So I started to give them advice based on what I was learning. And eventually that's how I became a banker. Once I left the FDIC, I got a job at a bank right away and have continued in banking. And there's so much to banking. Most people just know as they walk into the branch, and some people don't even walk into the branch anymore.
Right.
But they're just keeping track of their money. But the power in the bank and the power for our communities is upstairs, and I learned that very, very quickly by working in the back offices around the rules of money. And our community and communities at risk really have little, if any, knowledge of the process for obtaining that access to capital so that our communities can grow and flourish in all kinds of ways. But I'm out here to tell whatever it is that I know. When I started in banking, as I learned things, I created my own workshops. When I was in my 20s, I created my own workshops, and I would conduct them for the SBA in Washington, D.C., at Howard University, for any churches, nonprofit organizations, anybody who wanted to know about how to finance your business. I created my own workshops, and actually the materials that I'm using for how to finance your own business are actually written on a typewriter. And so I have converted them to PowerPoint.
Well, look, many people are
the same. Basics are the same.
Many people are like, typewriter. What's that?
I know. They all start laughing when I say that, as a matter of fact. But the basics are the same, and there's so much our community doesn't know. You hear a lot of talk these days, we need more black banks, but we need more people of color in the banks that have the structures in place. And that's why we need people coming out of college to consider a career in banking. And the training programs in the banks to bring all kinds of people and another generation of people in general into the industry. All of the banks are going through that. J.P. Morgan Chase probably has one of the best programs because they're paying the people in the training program six figures. but you probably need that to live in New York.
All right.
But you learn all the aspects of the industry, and then you can decide which part you want to work in. Do you want to work in operations? Do you want to be in the branches? Do you want to be on the retail side, the commercial side? I mean, there are all kinds of sides to the industry, and you learn that while you're in the training program.
Wow. Tons of opportunity from someone who's done it at a very high level and involved tremendously. Of course, we're talking with the 2018 Inside Business Women in Business Achievement Award recipient and also 2021 recipient of the Humanitarian Award here by the Virginia Center for Inclusion Communities, none other than Yvonne Allmond, Executive Vice President and Community Financial Engagement Officer with TowneBank. Yvonne, you're not just active in banking. I mean, every time I speak with you, your knowledge about banking and money is just tremendous. But you're also involved in the community very heavily on a lot of boards. Of course, as a board member here for the Norfolk State University Foundation and board of visitor member for ODU. But, where do you really find the time, and why is it important for you to be involved in all of these boards that you are involved in?
Well, I think it's very important for the boards, especially the ones that I have appointments for them to be the boards to be diversified and to hear an opinion other than their own. And a lot of people on a lot of boards are very well-meaning. They want to do something. They want to help. They want to do this, and they have a lot of money. They contribute a lot of money, but some of them really don't know the populations that they are tasked with benefits. And I found that very interesting, even in my 20s and early 30s about that. I remember one board that I was on, and it was Big Brothers Big Sisters at that time, and they were planning a big golf tournament, and at this golf course that I knew was an exclusive golf course. It did not allow people of color. This is in Virginia Beach. And I asked them at the board meeting, I said, you need to make sure that when you have the golf tournament, that golf facility, that the country club accepts all kinds of people, and that the people who we are tasked with representing would be allowed to go there. And they looked at me like, what is she talking about? So at the next board meeting, they said, we are changing the location of the golf tournament. We looked at their bylaws, and nobody here, none of the kids would be allowed to come over there at all. So that started them thinking. So then I was referred to other boards, and it continues to be the same. I'm always amazed at how little people who make huge contributions and are very well-meaning who are very well-meaning just do not know anything about the community at all. I am always very much amazed at that.
Wow. Right here in our community, it really takes, us to be engaged and involved, to let others know, because sometimes people honestly just don't know.
They really don't know. And I'm a northerner. I grew up mostly in the north. Washington, D.C. was south to me, and this is really south to me. But at least there are people who you would expect to know something about someone else. But if you are 40 and 50 years old in this community and you have never had a meaningful conversation with a person of color or one as a friend, then, I said, that's not good.
Yeah.
And that is not good. But there's so many people who are in that situation, and people who you're always surprised, really, you don't know this? And they don't even know about the history of this area. I talked to someone yesterday because I attended one of the many Norfolk 17 events that they had during Black History Month. And he's retired now, but he's an executive. And he said, I was fascinated by that. I had no idea. I said, are you from here? And he said, yes. But they just don't pay attention to things that do not directly affect them.
Absolutely. Which is why the importance of talking about and teaching our history. It's our story, and it's to help, it's to learn and appreciate the past, but also to help us here in the future. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. You've joined us for our Community Impact Series, where we're talking about money, here with none other than one of the persons that I admire tremendously and her just knowledge and her engagement in the community, Yvonne Allmond, who's the Executive Vice President and Community Financial Engagement Officer here with TowneBank. So let's talk about money, right? Your financial literacy program that you created, one of them, there are some highlights that you've mentioned, and I just want to point out a few things here, and I want you to tell us about how we can learn more about our money. But you said that many Americans are at risk of being left behind because of financial burdens and lack of basic understanding. So just a couple of stats. 44%, you say, of Americans do not have the cash on hand to cover a $400 emergency. That's $400.
Yes, $400, and some of the statistics we're using are like, considering there are 350 million people in the country, that's 154 million people that don't have $400 to cover an emergency. That's huge.
Wow. You also said 43% of student loan borrowers are not making a single payment right now. 43%.
150 million people. Yes.
Wow. And considering student loans are about $1.7 trillion right now, that's and going up as well. 38% of American households have credit card debt averaging more than $16,000 on an average APR, an annual percentage rate of 16.47%.
Yes, that is amazing too. That's another 133 million people.
Wow. And this is the one that's astonishing to me. I understand individuals, get into credit card debt. I understand taking student loans out for, your education because you're leveraging. Don't quite understand the 400 emergency savings, but I get it. Things happen. But 33%, you said, of Americans have not saved one penny for retirement. Wow.
Yes. And they don't participate in their own 401k plans, 115 million people. Some of the classes that I have put together were actually organizations, employers want us to talk together. I actually work with them to put a program together for their employees. The things that HR sees, they see garnishments coming in. They're finding out that several members of their staff who are in senior positions are living in their cars. This is all around us. You don't know who is in a situation. So,
you say several members of individual senior staff are living in their cars. Is that what you said?
Yes, and that's a couple of employers approached me and said that they wanted me to do a budget class because we actually offer what I do, the financial literacy program, to our community. We offer it to employers. We offer it to our customers for their employees. I conducted one this morning for some drivers of an Amazon warehouse because they're making more money than they've ever made in their lives. So their bosses want them to know how to budget their money. They want them to know about bank accounts. And we had about 30 people in that session this morning who wanted just the basics about their account, how to open the account, whether or not they even have an account. Because in addition to those statistics you read off, 9 million people in this country are unbanked. They cannot open a bank account. So how are they going to survive when, since COVID, there's less and less cash is being used? And if you work for any employer, you probably have direct deposit. They're not giving you a paycheck. If you ask for a paycheck, that's usually a red flag in HR that why can't you have a bank account? And there's usually a reason that they can't have a bank account. They may have misused a bank account previously. And once you misuse an account, for instance, if you owe Bank of America or TowneBank $1,000 and they've had to charge the account off, that means you did not pay the fees and everything associated with it. That could have been $100 that you actually overdrew the account, but with fees adding up, it could really add up to several $100s. And so my suggestion would be to go back to them, to the bank, ask them to please waive those fees, and then you pay what you actually overdrew so that you can get started. If you have a relationship with a bank, your company has a relationship with a bank, they can probably override that and help you with that so that you can start a bank account and start to get established because you really need one to function. That's a lot of people who do not have a bank account, and then they become victims of all of these high-rate fraud things and all kinds of things. So you really need to do it with an established financial institution.
Wow. So let's back up a little and let's get your expertise on what individuals can do and what you recommend in order to remedy some of these financial issues that I articulated earlier from your program. 44%, as you said, don't have cash on hand to cover a $400 emergency fund or emergency. What is it that you recommend for our listeners to do to start an emergency fund?
Whatever money you have coming in, put something aside in an account that is just in your name. If you're married, if you're a couple, still have an account together if you want, but still have an account in your own name under your own tax ID number. And if you're a couple, each one of you should have your own account in your own name and in addition to a joint account if you want that. And put something aside, even if it's starting with $5. I remember, working part-time when I was at the FDIC, and out of every paycheck I would started putting $5 in to a separate savings account. By Christmas, I had about $500 because I would put a little bit more, sometimes 10. But you have to start somewhere. And most people think, well, if I'm going to do $5, it's not going to make a difference. But over time, it will. And then you will, as you start to see that grow, you don't want to touch it. And you want to see it grow. So you will have that emergency fund very quickly if you make sure that out of every bit of money that you get, you put something aside for yourself. You pay yourself like you pay MasterCard, Visa, your rent, pay yourself too.
Right. I heard a saying once about the most powerful force that we have here in our realm, especially as bank, is called compound interest, and it works with time. So you mentioned over time, it starts to grow, and that compound interest is something else.
It is, and interest rates are going back up now. So if you can get a certificate of deposit, some of them start with as little as $50. And, it might be for 5 months, it might be for a year. You can't add to it, but you can watch that $50 grow into something else. If you have a joint account with your child or have an account that the child can open on his own if they're 18, if you go out, say, we're all going to use our own money, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to want to go out to eat if they're going to have to use their own money because they have watched their money grow and they want to continue to save that money. It creates a mindset, and then you've got to really start early. Just the basics, just starting to put $5 away, it starts to grow. Every time you get paid, just put something away, and you will watch it grow. And $400 is not a lot of money, but once you watch it grow, you will want to really hang on to it and watch it grow.
Absolutely. Now, let's just kind of segue to retirement as well, since it's about savings. What would you recommend? You said many persons are not taking advantage of companies' 401ks and company match, and we know that Social Security is something that our country has, but again, you don't want that to be your primary source. What is it that you recommend that our listeners can do to help save for their retirement?
Pretend like the Social Security isn't there. They're going to take it out anyway. But if you can even participate in a 401k plan to the maximum, and especially if your company has a match, you can watch that grow. And if you're in your 20s, you can hear about the stock market. It actually starts to make you interested in things that affect your finances so that you will have a handle on your finances. You will start to watch the stock market, and you will learn to panic and not to panic. But when you're in your 20s, once you start taking classes, because if you have a 401k plan, they offer webinars now so that you can kind of learn about the money and how to invest for yourself and take advantage of those. All of that is free, and that money is pre-tax, so you end up with pre-tax money, and by the time you need the money, hopefully, you will be of age where your tax category will be a little bit lower. So by the time you pay the taxes on it, your taxes will also be lower. But that's a way that you can really, really, really participate in the system and not be left out. I explained that too. I remember a few years ago when everything was going on with the stock market, my hairdresser says, I feel so left out of things. I said, why don't you get an IRA account or a retirement account for you as your own, since you're your own employer? And then you won't be left out of things. Wow. So she started doing that and started reading up on the things that she was invested in, and she was able to buy a house. she really started to pay attention.
Wow. Speaking of stock market and paying attention to finances, I remember, going to the library. And what I like to do during the summer is just pick a subject that I want to learn more about and just delve into it. And this summer, and it was years ago, we're talking, a couple of decades ago, I wanted to delve into investing. So I got this book by Warren Buffett and started just to read more about it. And he talked about the stock market. Over time, it's the best investment that you can make. So what you're saying is true. I can testify to that.
Well, and even I know some people who had money in a company when they were younger, and the company merged with another company. They'd long left that company, and their stock increased, and they paid it no attention. And recently, I told them, I said, we need to go out on that website, findmymoney.com.
Yeah.
And so he went out on that site, and he said there was something in his name. They don't tell you how much it is, and he worked for the company that became AT&T.
Wow.
So, that was probably really valuable stock way back then. And in the 80s, he left it and he formed his own company, and he'd been there for probably 8 or 9 years. So he said he saw that. He sent in the information to get more information on it. He didn't pay it any attention. He said a couple months later he got a call, and he thought it was a scam call. And someone said they're going to be in the area, and they had information for him related to his response to the Find My Money through the trip. And so he said, okay. So they came to his office, and they gave him a check for over $250,000. It was done. And that's why they wanted to do it in person.
Right.
I have probably like $30-some left from Virginia Pilot, so they'll send that to me if I ask for it. But they had a few people in that area that they wanted to actually meet in person because they had checks for more than $250,000.
Wow. Again, find your money. You just never know. And I know about AT&T. My mother, before she passed, she had worked for AT&T, which was first South Central Bell, then became Lucent Technologies, then became AT&T. So I know what you mean about those buying. Yvonne, listen, I love this talk about money. We want to have you back, throughout the year. And like I say, you're no stranger to the station. You're always on the morning show or other segments. But give our listeners some information that they can secure and contact you or go to TowneBank's website to find more about the financial literacy program that you have. And if they want to get involved, how can they do that?
They can call me directly at 757-628-6361 because I create my own schedule. And then we can talk about a plan that may fit for them or a group. And we can go from there because everybody's situation is different. When you have a big group, sometimes people don't like to talk about their personal financial situations. So if I'm talking to a group, I always stay and then let people line up and I talk to them one-on-one about things. But we can also talk one-on-one. So anytime they get ready, they can call me at this number, and I'll be happy to reach out. And for their employer, I can put a program together for the employer that addresses all the employees, and we can meet in person or virtual and do these workshops. It can be the evening, the weekend, the morning, whatever they want.
Awesome. We're so lucky to have you here in our community, and we thank you again for being a part of the Spartan Nation as a board member here with the Foundation and also as a regular partner here on WNSB. That's Yvonne Towne, Executive Vice President and Community Financial Engagement Officer with TowneBank, who throughout her career has regularly conducted credit seminars and business financing seminars for many colleges, schools, churches, community groups, sharing her experience and her wealth of financial knowledge accumulated during her career. Again, this State of the Water, where we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. Until next time, we'll see you next week. God bless, be great, and enjoy your weekend.